Hello and welcome to Pictorial Planet. My name's John Finch. Today we're going to be looking at this bulk loaded film. It's a little bit tricky because you need certain items of equipment to be able to bulk load, but they're easy to get on eBay, they're relatively cheap, and you'll save a fortune in the long run. It's bulk loaded film that's enabled me to do the zone system with my 35mm cameras. So let's jump right in. Let's have a look at what we need to bulk load and how we actually do it. I'm going to demonstrate both the Lloyds bulk loader and a Western bulk loader. So depending on which one you've got, you'll be able to do it. All right, let's go. So in order to bulk load film, we're going to need some equipment, of course, and let's just go over that first of all. So we're going to need a bulk loader. This is a film bulk loader here. This is a Lloyds type. There's also the Western type, and I'm going to demonstrate that one as well. You'll see these freely available on eBay. A lot of these come second-hand, and they're usually perfectly good second-hand. There's not much can go wrong with one of these. As long as it's got all the parts, it should be fine. You'll also need some cassettes that you can load the film into. We'll have a look at those as well shortly. You're going to need bulk film. So here is a box of bulk film from Ilford. They come in two lengths. I buy the 30-meter length, which is 100 feet. And we'll have a look at that in a moment as well. And you're going to need some sellotape or scotch tape if you're in America, and a pair of scissors. And that's pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do now is sort of go through these a little deeper so you understand how they're working. So inside of one of these cassettes, you can unscrew one side, the top here. I'll just bring that up to the camera. There we go. You see the top unscrews and opens up. It's like a bayonet. It just turns a quarter turn and locks in place. Quarter turn back and open that up, and then inside you have a spool. And we're going to attach the film to that spool, and it goes always in this open end. The long part of the spool, you see there's a long part and a short part. Short in first, long sticking out. We'll see why that is later, and we'll lock it back into place there like that. That's the bit I always double check when I've loaded the film, that that's nice and tight so that it's not going to come undone in your camera bag. Here is one that I have got a little piece of film in so you can see how the film is attached. So I'm going to unscrew the top bit and I'm going to pull out the spool inside there. So this is how the film is inside the spool, and I attach it with a piece of sellotape around the spool like that. There's probably other ways of doing that. This is just the way I've always done it. So that's how I'll be demonstrating it. Inside of the bulk loader, it's going to load this film onto this spool. We'll see how in a moment. And then we're going to put it back into the cassette, and it'll be sticking out. Then we'll pop the top back on like so. So the fun thing for me, of course, doing this video is I've got to do it all behind the camera, so it's all a little bit different for me. So forgive me if I'm a bit fingers and thumbs while I'm doing this. But what about this box here? What's inside of this? Well, of course, when we buy our bulk film, we can't open this unless we're in complete darkness. No red lights, nothing. It's got to be pitch black. And when you open this up, there is a black, thick plastic bag inside. And inside of that is a roll of film like this. It's a bit bigger than this one. This is an old one that I had that was exposed to light. And of course, this is just regular film, 35mm. And it's loaded into the device like this. This has got film in it, so I'm not going to open this up. But inside here, I unscrew this end here, and this whole side pops off, and there's a spool in the middle. that I can stick this into like this. And then you feed the film in the dark, complete darkness. So when you open this up, have a good look how the feed works to come up to here. Because you're going to put this film onto that spool and you're going to feed it up through a blackout area of felt, a kind of light lock made of felt, and it's going to come out there. Now here's a tip. Make sure the shiny side of the film, which is always the outside, is on the top and comes out that way. So it's always going to be on the top. The emulsion side, this lighter side, should be on the bottom when it comes out. When you've put that in and you've put this up through like that, you put the side back on, you screw this on here onto a screw end on the spool, and it locks it all into place. Always feel with your fingers just to make sure it's completely sealed all the way around, that you've got this on properly and it feels completely sealed, and then screw this on. And that's you with your film inside. Now there's also this mechanism here which is used to wind the film on, and we'll see how that works shortly. Let's open this up and see inside. So you can see there's a bit of film sticking out, and this bit's always going to be exposed to light. There's nothing you can do about that. So this is at the end of your film roll, so you'll always get about 1 frame or 1.5 frames at the very end which are ruined. They're exposed to light and are no good to you. So be aware of that when you're taking your photographs, that your last couple of shots aren't going to come out. So on your camera, watch the count up as it's going up, because you know how many frames you've put onto your reel. Okay, so let's just demonstrate how to get your film onto one of these cassettes. So I face it towards me like this. I have the door open, I have the windy handle here, and I'm going to open up my cassette, and it goes to the right like this. The long bit sticking out goes to the right hand side. So just quarter turn, open that up, get our cassette ready. And this is how I do it. I take a piece of sellotape, let me just pull some off. I'm pulling off about 1.5 inches of sellotape. And I put it onto the film first of all. And I'm putting it on the first, I'd say that's about 1/2 inch. A good 1/2 inch of that tape is on there. And the rest is on my finger. You can see that on my finger. And then I put this underneath, like so. Remember the long part to the right hand side, and then I wrap the tape around the spool and up underneath, like so. So now the sellotape is on the top of the film, around the spool, and attaching on the bottom of the film. And it's roughly about the same amount, about 1/4 inch. You'll get used to how much you need to pull out of sellotape to be able to do that. Now that's nice and tight. That's not going to come off. Important, because when you get to the end of your film on your camera and you ratchet that wheel to the wind-on lever, expecting the next frame, it's going to stop because you've got to the end of your film. So you need to make sure this is reasonably tight and well secured. So remember, I keep saying this, the long end to the right-hand side. Now I get my cassette outer part here, and I'm going to put it in. And as we look down here, the film comes through a felted light trap at an angle. There's a very slight angle. So I want to replicate that angle here. I'm just going to try to push that in. And it is fiddly. You just got to get it to want to go through the light trap. There it is. It's through the light trap there, through the felt. And that's it. And the felt is on both sides of that film. And then put this end back on again, 1/4 turn, nice and tight. Now, there it is, attached to the film. Push it in, and the film will go inside of the bulk loader. Close the top and put in the handle. So I'm going to pop the handle in there, and I'm going to turn it until it locks. There, it's locked in. There. You see that lock in? It's gone right inside. And now one turn should pull in that part of the film that was exposed to the light. Now, I'm a bit always worried about my film getting light onto it, so I put my hand around here to hold this doorway really tight and cover up this gap. There shouldn't be any light getting in there, but I just like to cover it up just because. And then I'm going to wind 12 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There we are. So my film's been wound 12. That's round about 10 frames on this bulk film, on this bulk cassette. So I take that out now. Now I can open this up. And there it is. And I'm just going to pull this gently out. Gently, gently. And I'm going to cut off the film like that, leaving about a ½ inch or so out like that. And then close my door. And that's all safe. You can lock the door shut with the wind-on mechanism, and it also keeps it together so you don't lose it. So let's just put that over to one side. So here's my film. Now, you can see at the bottom here is the long part, and it goes into your camera that way. So it's going to click into the camera like that, and then this part of the film is the film I'm going to put onto my wind-on spool in my camera. So all I need to do now is, with my scissors, is to cut a little shape like so, which is just right for putting in my camera and locking it in. So that's how it should look when you're finished. For ages, I used to get an old piece of proper film that I'd cut off and draw a line of the shape of this and then cut it to the exact spec. You don't have to do that. I wasted so long doing that. It's just a case of cutting this nice shape in that you've seen 1,000 times on previous films. Now the last thing to do before you forget is to write on this side of the film what kind of film this is, because if you don't write it down, you're going to forget. You're going to get the film out in your camera bag and go, which one is that? I have 2 of these bulk loaders, the Western and this one, and they've both got different films in, and so I need to know which one I'm using on the day. So don't forget to write the name of the film on it. Now I also want to just demonstrate the Western because it's slightly different. Here it is. And it's good to know how these different ones work. These are freely available on the internet. They don't cost too much money. They save you a fortune by bulk loading your own film. And of course, it also allows you the advantage of being able to do a bit of zone system work with your 35mm, because you can shoot off this very short piece of film at N+ or N-, and then develop it appropriately. So the Western, well, it's loaded up the same way. You unscrew this here, and this whole circular side comes off. You then put your film in the dark, pitch black, and you feed it out through a light trap out like so. And again, the shiny side of the film, the non-emulsion side, should be on the outside like that. So that's how it would look like inside. You then you pop this side back on, run your fingers around it, make sure it's properly seated, and then screw this on here, and that tightens the whole thing up together. Now you'll notice something about this Western, and that is it's got this shaped side like this. And what this is for you to be able to lock the door, the trap door, shut by moving it this way like this and clicking it into place. It's now opened up the light trap to allow the film to be run onto your spool. We'll see that in a moment. And when you've finished, before you open this up, you lock this back up again. And for that reason, I have marked it like this with 2 red paint marks so that I can see when it's not completely locked. I lock it up and those marks are in line. So it's a good tip to do. Make sure you've got this as a safety measure so you don't accidentally expose all of that film inside and ruin it. So let's load a film into this one. We're going to use a similar technique. I'm going to show you how this works. So on this one, the handle stays on. You can't take the winding handle off. And you have this lever here. If you remember, I've got it safe. It's safe, it's locked, so I can open this. So now I use this here, and it just pull that up slightly, and it pops up the top like that. So this is a flap which will seal when we actually load the film into it and wind it on. And there's our film coming out that's been preloaded. So now I have to get my spare, here we are, there's one here, just get it ready. This is an old one of some film that was no good. There we are. So here we are again. I have my spool from my cassette and I've got it on the right hand side. Look, same way round, the long piece to the right. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get my sellotape. I'm going to pull about 1 inch to 1.5 inches off, like so. And here I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to attach it first of all by about 1/2 inch to that, roughly in the middle, doesn't have to be exact. Put it in on the spool there with the long side to the right and make sure it's all lined up nicely, and then just wrap that round and attach it on the other side of the film. So that's that on nicely there. Now, can I find it? It's hard from behind the camera. So here is my cassette outer part. I'm going to pop that in there. Look, that went in nice and easy. And then I'm going to put the end on, 1/4 turn, and it's on. Look at that. It's got a kind of lip sticking out, and when it's fitted, that lip needs to be in line with where the film is coming out of the cassette. So pop it on. There we are. Now this time we don't push it back like that. We have to attach this in between these 2 parts here. So I'm going to pull them out and just push the film down so it gets in there like that. There we are. So now it's locked in between these 2. They click into those holes in the spool of the cassette. Now up here you may notice there's a bar. It's attached to this thing here, and that bar has got some what would you call them, sprockets, and the sprocket fits into these holes on the film. Now through experience I've noticed that it doesn't always line up to those sprockets properly. So sometimes I don't have it lined up and it doesn't make any difference. I haven't scratched the film or damaged the film at all. But if they're lining up like this one is here, that's very good. Now you close the lid, push this lever down here, close the lid. I have to push my lid up slightly to get it fully sealed. There it is. It's all closed now, and it's flush with the rest of the box. I then lock the lid in place like that by turning this lock there, and of course my lines are no longer, my red marks are no longer lined up, but it's all locked in place. So now I can wind my film on. So I'm going to do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You heard the clicking there, and that's a counter giving me an idea of how many frames I'm clicking on. That counter only works if your sprockets are engaged in the film. If they're not, and sometimes mine isn't, there's no clicking, so I have to count. So now that that's all gone in, notice I'm holding this very carefully to keep it shut. I then lock the light trap again to get my red marks lined up. There they are. Red marks are all lined up. Light trap's closed. I can now open the bulk loader. And there it is. My film is all loaded in here. I'm going to open this up. Just pop the film out here. And I'm going to just cut it about half an inch from here. Turn it down so that the long end is facing down. Pull it out a little bit, and I'm going to cut myself that nice shape for loading into the camera. I always double check these are tight. Make sure they're tight. When I take them out of my camera bag, I always check they're tight as well. Inside the bag, of course, I keep them inside of these, which I've collected over the years to keep them safe, but always double check that this end bit is nice and tight on, and you'll be fine, absolutely fine. So this is pan F. I better mark that up because I'll get it mixed up with the other one if I'm not careful. I'll write it under here. So there, that was a demonstration of how to bulk load your own film. I'm a huge fan of bulk loading. I do it all the time. I don't know why everyone isn't doing this. It's cheaper. The film you can buy in bulk, you can store the bulk film in the freezer for years, so don't worry about not using it all. You can even wrap these bulk loading machines in a plastic bag, make sure it's airtight, a freezer bag for instance, and you can freeze the whole thing if you want. Just remember that when you take it out of the freezer, keep it inside of the bag for at least a couple of hours to warm up to room temperature, so that you don't get any condensation forming, and you'll be just fine. So, okay, well guys, I hope that you enjoyed that. Definitely recommend doing this. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching the channel, and I'll see you next time.